The momentum is building. The buzz is getting louder because we are just a few days away from SEC Media Days. And tonight, on this edition of the How About That Dawgscast, we're going to talk about the power move that Kirby Smart is making as he steps to the podium in Tampa Bay. And we're going to get this thing started by just remembering that this is Kirby's 11th year headed to the podium at SEC Media Days. This is not new for him. He knows what it's all about, and he goes at it with a purpose. And what I mean is, he's not just walking up there and saying, this is about this player, this player, this player, and, you know, I enjoy this trip and it's fun. No, he is going to the podium with a purpose because he understands that there is power in his words. And all of that is buttressed by the amount of success that he has had. When they go to the podium down in Tampa on the 21st, you are going to see Kirby Smart do what he's done every year over the last handful of years at the University of Georgia. Whether Georgia was favored to win the league or not, whether they were preseason top 5 or not, Kirby Smart is always going to step up there with a message to deliver because he understands that if he doesn't set the narrative, then someone else will. And when you're Kirby Smart and you're the Georgia Bulldogs, you lead the pack. You set the narrative. You don't let somebody else take your day and run with it. You want to make sure that the message you want to leave everyone with until they see you play in the fall is resolutely delivered. And frankly, we're going to flip back and look at what I was talking about last week. This is a power play. So again, if I look at my readings, The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, I can point you in the direction of what you can expect from the podium from Kirby Smart next week in Tampa. It's pretty straightforward. There are several different laws here, but see, here's the thing. I'm going to get you prepped, not only for what Kirby's going to say, but for what everybody else is going to do. But for Kirby particularly, let's look at Law 5 in the 48 Laws of Power. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. And like I just told you, when Kirby steps to the podium, he is going to frame the narrative in the way that he wants it to be. Okay? This is the core of what I want to talk about in this episode because reputation for Kirby is everything. How are you perceived? Are you perceived as the one with the biggest voice in the room? Do you carry weight when you walk into the room? Do you have to be loud, or can you just be and everybody knows who you are? He's controlling this program's narrative before anybody else can write it. And 26 is the ultimate case for this because the SEC, to hear the national media talk about it, is on the back foot. And Georgia, the flagship of the SEC for the last 2 years, apparently has forgotten how to win in the month of January. At least that's what they want us to know. So I don't know what Kirby's going to say specifically when he comes to the podium, but I know that he is going to address where Georgia's at right now. They had the departure of Will Muschamp to Texas. That, of course, is going to be a question. And there will be many other things. What about the recruiting? How's that going? How is NIL doing? What about your failures in January? He's going to have to tackle all of these things. But he is going to have a plan to either redirect the conversation or change and set the narrative outright when he steps up in front of the media down in Tampa. But there are other things we can look at. Look at Law 4 in the 48 Laws. Always say less than is necessary. Now, if you know Kirby Smart, and if you have watched this channel for more than half a second, you know that I am constantly reminding you that Kirby Smart will not lie to you when he's at the podium. He's going to be honest, but he may not tell you everything that you want to know, and that is by design. He's going to get up there and talk about whatever it is the media wants to talk about. He's going to deliver his points, but at the same time, he's not going to give away anything that is going to hurt his team in any way. He's not going to give an advantage to anybody. And that message discipline is the power move. He can tell us what we need to know. He can lay out the vision for what the 2026 team can be. He's going to talk about the players that are with him in Tampa. But in no way is he going to sling the doors open and just let everybody else know what's going on. He might have deficiencies on his team. He may very readily acknowledge that there are deficiencies on his team. But he's certainly not going to give you the insider information on how to do that. It was funny last year when he was at the podium, he said as much. He's like, I might have a cutting edge technique. I might be doing something. I'm certainly not going to share that here. He was very upfront about it. So expect to see more of that from Kirby, from the podium down in Tampa. Another one we could look at is Law 3. Conceal your intentions. Always. And this is kind of what I was just talking about. He chooses what he wants to address and what he wants to let go away. We've seen him do it in the past, talking about culture at the university, talking about complacency, the standard that the guys have to live up to, or motivating phrases that has been drilled into the players' heads over the course of the offseason since they last were playing football. So again, this is a deft sleight of hand. He is going to tell you what he wants you to know. He's going to lead you down a trail of, this is what we're doing right now. I don't want to talk about these deficiencies or this turnover or the fact that somehow we're perceived to be on the back foot. He may not address that directly, but he's going to redirect that conversation and tell you this is what we are about. And at the same time, he's got some strong men there with him to help him do that. So don't think for one second that they also have not been coached up in what to talk about and how to talk about it. This is going to be fun to watch because Law 34 tells us that you should always be royal in your own fashion. What does that mean? Well, Kirby Smart is a back-to-back SEC champion. He's a two-time national champion. And when he walks into the room, he's walking in as the standard of the conference. And that carries a certain amount of weight, and Kirby Smart will carry himself accordingly. He understands that he is now the most tenured SEC head coach. He understands that because of his success on the national level, he is one of the most heavily weighted voices in all of college football. And people don't have to like what he has to say, but Kirby's going to tell you the truth, and he is going to get his points across, sometimes more pointedly than others, but the entire time, he's going to stay above the fray. He's never going to attack another coach directly. He certainly isn't going to attack a player who may have chosen to go to another school. He's going to rise above it all and show that those things are not worthy of his attention because he's Kirby Smart, the head coach at the University of Georgia and one of the leading voices in all of college football. And as a Georgia fan, that's how we should want him to act. At this point, none of this is new. It's old hat. In fact, that's a lot of why Georgia has the sort of angst among its fan base that it has. Some of it's people just being spoiled, absolutely, but some of it is because they forget that Kirby wants us all to act like we've been there before. So when we go on the road and hammer number one Texas a couple years ago, all right, that's what Georgia does. Georgia goes into the SEC championship game, the underdog against that same Texas team, beats them again. Georgia takes a loss last year to Alabama, but then shows up in Atlanta for the SEC championship game, drops the hammer on Alabama, because that's what Georgia does. They learn from the past and they improve. And they stay above the petty nonsense that sometimes fans get wrapped up in. But you're not going to see Kirby Smart do that because he is an ambassador, not just for the University of Georgia, but also for the SEC, especially next week, and then for college football as a whole, as he sits on committees and boards that carry weight across the sport. And his coaching tree is growing. So there are coaches all over the country who have either worked for Kirby and now carry his ways forward, or they respect what he's done and flat out are like, if Kirby Smart's talking, I'm listening. So this is what we're going to do. And I want you to see it as it happens in real time. I hope you get to watch it because it's going to be fun and interesting to watch. But Law 6 follows this up with the idea that you're going to court attention at all costs. And you're like, wait a minute, that seems counterintuitive to what we were just talking about. It is, but that's the way you play the game. That's how you wield this kind of power. And Kirby Smart is absolutely making a power move at Tampa next week. And I talked about it as I revealed the players that were going to be with Kirby earlier this week. And the idea here is that who you bring with you makes a statement. The selections that Kirby made to bring with him to Tampa says something about this team. What does it mean? Well, obviously Gunner Stockton is the face of the team. He is the face of the program right now. And if you look at who else is coming, an All-American at the trenches where the game is won in the SEC and Drew Bobo. It also speaks to legacy and continuity within the program. That one's a multiple point winner. And then you have Raylen Wilson, who is ascending to now be the voice on the defensive side of the football for the University of Georgia. There are other leaders there, but everyone will tell you that Raylen Wilson is the guy that makes it go. He is the heartbeat. He's the one who instills that dog mentality, that physicality that Kirby Smart has to have from his defenses. That comes from Raylen Wilson. So, of course, he's the one that's going to be there. So these guys are not just showing up to have fun, take a bunch of pictures, talk to guys like me. No, they're showing up, whether they even realize it or not, because Kirby Smart is sending a message with every move that he makes, because this is not a fun beach trip for the Dogs. It's far from it. This is a message that he is going to deliver, and he is going to do it well and on all fronts. Don't believe me? Just think back to what he's done in the past.
People have asked the question, how does it feel to be hunted? We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that.
And he's been right about that. And they've backed it up. Again, if you need a reminder, just look at the winning that Kirby Smart has done during his time in Athens. 117-21, right? Outstanding winning percentage, dominating his rivals inside the conference and regionally. 2 national championships, 4 SEC championships, 5 consecutive trips to the game, looking to make it 6. You can go on and on and on. We didn't even touch on the success that they've had churning out players for the NFL. They have this machine rolling in Athens. So when Kirby stepped up there and said, we will not be hunted at the University of Georgia, he meant that. And the results are right there for everyone to see. So again, Kirby's going to tell you the truth when he steps to the podium. And he's also going to set the table for you.
Assume nothing. Assume nothing. Assume nothing. Start from ground zero and build this team different than every other team.
And why wouldn't he be confident that he can do that? Again, look at the track record. That's your proof of concept. And he's telling you as a fan, this is what we're doing. We are assuming nothing. We are building this thing from scratch year over year, which is something I try to share with you guys here. I try to remind you all the time, this is not the kind of thing that is a video game. Every team is different. You got to grow them. You have to develop them. You have to mature them. And that takes time. Sometimes you got to gel this thing in the middle of the year. It's not ready in September. You know, you put the toothpick in the middle of the cake and it's a little jiggly. But by the time you get down to October, by the time you get down to November, man, that cake's looking right. That team is looking right. And that is why Georgia has been so successful over the last few years. Because they have figured out the pattern. They have unlocked what it takes to maintain player availability, avoid injury where it is avoidable, and then be playing their best football at the end of this 12-game season when they get to the championship game. Now, of course, that opens the door to, is that the new plan? But I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Kirby's got that part unlocked. Now what they have to do is figure out that next part. And that's what they're working on. And how are they doing it? They're doing it because of the kind of players that they're choosing to bring into Athens. And he's talked about this from the podium too. Let me remind you.
Fire, passion, and energy. I actually want them to compete to separate themselves as guys that have fire, passion, and energy. I've seen what it looks like to have fire, passion, and energy, and I've seen guys that were really hungry. You know what they had? They had a love for the game and fire, passion, and energy.
That was last year from the podium in Atlanta. This is who we're looking for. And there's a little bit of this that's carried over through the spring if you look at the recruiting world and what's going on. He flat told you from the podium last year, we're not going after everybody. We're not going after the kid that wants the most money. We're going after the kid who can, I don't even care about his best 40 time. I care about what his 40th 40 time is. Does he want it? Does he have that hunger? Will he keep working? That's the kind of player they're looking for. And all it has done for Georgia over the last 2 years has produced back-to-back SEC championships and berths into the college football playoff. And yet people want to look at that and somehow cry foul as if they've set the house on fire. Somehow that doesn't register as good enough. It's insanity, if you ask me. Because those college football games that they lost in January the last 2 years, both of them turned on a series of a handful of plays. Total, across both games, you could point to less than 10 plays that determine the outcome. It's not like Georgia somehow just didn't show up. It just didn't go their way, but that's why you play the game. And I'm not bitter about that, and I'm not going to ignore all of the success that they've had in the run-up to that. Because it's deeper than one game and its outcome. It is, you have to look at Kirby and what he is building and what he's doing and how he's doing it. And he's telling you, he's laying out the blueprint for you. Here's what we're doing. And all they keep doing is stacking hardware. I just don't understand a world where stacking hardware is not a good thing. Makes no sense to me at all. The question now becomes, what's going to happen here in 2026? When Kirby strolls to the podium down in Tampa, what is the message that he's going to deliver? Now, I don't know, but I know he's coming loaded for bear, and I know he will deliver it well, and he will do it on behalf of the University of Georgia with the Georgia Bulldogs' best interests at heart at all times. And as a Georgia fan, I'm okay with that. I can't wait to see what he says. Something else I can't wait to do is tell you about the special offer we have over at Patreon. It's not going to last forever. If you're kicking the can, don't miss the bus here. Don't get distracted by the can that you missed the bus in this opportunity to get the next 2 months for just $3. Jump on board with us. You get access to everything we're doing, plus all the behind the scenes stuff, plus all the giveaway stuff, plus. That's why we call it How About Them Dogs Plus. Okay? Come on over. Check it out. Now, like I said, SEC Media Days are next week. Man, I'm excited. If you only knew how much thought, effort, like consideration I have had tied up around SEC Media Days for the last 3 months, you'd blow your mind. You'd be like, that boy ain't right. But what can I say? I love this kind of stuff. This is what I do. I care about all of it. Georgia mostly, but I'm interested in all of the teams and how they show and what they want to tell us. And Georgia is rolling down to Tampa next week. The week itself is going to run Monday through Thursday, as it usually does. But Georgia's going to hit the podium on July 21st. So that's the second day, which is pretty cool. That's a good spot right in the heart of the whole thing. They're certainly going to have a lot of attention down there that day. They're considered to be a favorite in the SEC. They're considered a contender for the national championship. So, of course, people are going to be tuned in and watching. I hope you will be too. And keep an eye on this space because we're going to keep you up to date on everything that actually matters around Georgia football at SEC Media Days. But I digress. The Dogs are taking Drew Bobo, Gunner Stockton, and Raylen Wilson down there, in case you missed that earlier. Kirby Smart has chosen wisely, in my opinion, about the players that he wants to take. When you look across the conference, there are other teams that are making decisions that make you go, wow, I can't believe that's the case. All you got to do is look at like Missouri, who named Austin Simmons their starting quarterback in the spring. Remember, he transferred in from Ole Miss, named him starting quarterback in the spring, and yet somehow decided they're not going to bring him to SEC Media Days. So when you look at what Kirby's doing, you got to think to yourself, he's sending a message, because these other guys, I'm questioning what it is they're doing. Maybe they'll explain it, but I'm pretty confident that Kirby's got a bead on what it is he wants to get done down at Tampa. And these guys are showing up because, yeah, Kirby's bringing them. But if you honestly looked across the roster, could you find 3 guys that more embody what it means to be at the University of Georgia in 2026? You've got a guy who has only ever wanted to play for Georgia. He waited his turn. He's gotten his opportunity. And all he has done as a Bulldog is win in Gunner Stockton. By the way, top 10 finish in the Heisman voting last year, even though most of these preseason prognostications seem to be forgetting that fact conveniently. We'll see how it plays out. Then you got Drew Bobo, legacy, obviously, and a great player in his own right, a preseason All-American. And we know what a difference he made for Georgia last year when he wasn't in the lineup. So, of course, you want to hear from the guy who's going to lead a deep and veteran offensive line this year. Because if there's one thing that people have a question about around Georgia heading into the season, it's what are they going to be on offense? Well, you've got 2 offensive representatives here for the Dogs. Surely somebody's going to ask him those questions. And maybe we'll get some answers from them. But either way, it's going to be entertaining. Then if you look at the other guy, Raylen Wilson, he's a guy who was a top flight 5-star recruit coming into Georgia, chose to come to Georgia because he wanted to be developed. He saw what Schumann and Kirby were doing, and he has played and earned his keep the entire time. Played as a true freshman. But because of the way the thing broke out, he always seemed to be a half step back from C.J. Allen. But not anymore. The spotlight is Raylen Wilson's to own, and I think he's going to own it. I think he's going to be a physical leader for Georgia on the field. I think he's going to be a vocal leader for Georgia on the field this year. And that begins at SEC Media Day. And it's always interesting to see the guys that you don't think of them as being fantastic sound bites. Yet when they get to SEC Media Days, inevitably, they come out of there with something fun, a nice quote, a good time, a great memory. So when you're watching SEC Media Days and you're hanging on everything that our dogs are saying as they go through the car wash of visiting all the different radio shows and podcasts and SEC network studio appearances, all those things, just remember that this is fun too. Fun for them, fun for the media, fun for you, hopefully, as you watch. And I want you to be able to understand what it is they're trying to do. Sometimes it's just a soundbite, but when it's Kirby, 9 times out of 10, it's always something deeper. So keep your eyes open for it. Maybe it'll pop out to you. So now that's Georgia. But if we're being honest with ourselves, there's going to be a whole lot of other stuff going on down there. And of course, nothing's going to be bigger than the circus that surrounds Lane Kiffin and his move over to LSU. So you've got Kirby down there with a purpose, but you've got all this noise going on around Kiffin and everything else down there. Kiffin's going to be like, he's going to have a shadow over the whole thing. It was the biggest story the back half of the year last year, all through December into January. And frankly, it's been one of the biggest stories since because of everything that Kiffin has tried to do at LSU in the time since, right? Bringing in the roster, that's how he's choosing to spend his money. He's trying to get the right guys in the right places. We still don't know if his quarterback's healthy. There's a whole lot going on down there, and people are honestly unsure about what LSU is going to be. They could be 8-4. They could be 11-1. How healthy is your quarterback? A lot of that's going to come down to that. So it's going to be really, really interesting. But again, everybody's going to want to talk to Lane or get a photo or whatever when he's down there. I'm sure in true Lane fashion, he's going to step to the podium and he's going to say some stuff that is going to generate headlines, even if he doesn't want to, even if it's calm and not anything explosive. That in and of itself would generate headlines because Lane loves to be in the spotlight. He'll probably end up sitting next to Feinbaum, and they'll be doing some backhanded congratulations and jabs the whole time like they do every year. It's going to be a circus, a show. While you're watching that, I just want you to remember everything I just said about what Kirby Smart's doing. Will Lane Kiffin take the approach of Kirby Smart? Will he leverage the opportunity to the benefit of LSU, to the benefit of anybody other than Lane Kiffin? It'll be interesting because we know what Kirby's doing. We know what Georgia's doing. So it'll be interesting to see what Lane does and how he handles it. But again, that's going to get a lot of the shine down there. And oh, by the way, there's the fact that there are 6 new head coaches in the SEC this year as we get ready to head into the season. Lane Kiffin is the first, of course, now the 34th head coach at the, Louisiana State University for the Tigers. But there were others. Look around the league. The man who took over after Lane Kiffin bailed on Ole Miss, Pete Golding. Now he gets the run of the mill as the head man down in Oxford. It's going to be very interesting to see if he can duplicate in 2026 what he saw and was able to do at the end of 2025 when he was still, let's be honest, using the pieces that Kiffin had put in place. Now the decisions are Golding's. He's had an eventful offseason too. Little tampering allegations, throwing a little shade back and forth. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to get a lot of people excited. It's going to kick up a lot of dust. But it's just going to keep going because you think it's just 1 or 2. No. This is the SEC. Nothing compares to SEC Media Days. Nothing. The Big 10, Big 12, not even. They can't even sniff it. This is a marquee event for the conference and for every one of these people who show up there. So now Auburn's bringing in yet another new head coach in Alex Golesh, who, by the way, has done everything right so far for Auburn. They seem to love him, and he's bringing in a bunch of new players. Auburn's feeling a little frisky here in the summer. But he's coming over from USF. That's where he brought most of his transfer portal guys from. Everybody's going to want their take on that too, even the Georgia people, because Auburn is part of the Deep South's oldest rivalry. So, of course, we have some interest in what it is Golesh is doing over there, but we're just now halfway through. Like, Will Stein's taking over at Kentucky. Georgia doesn't have to play Kentucky this year, but Kentucky, just me looking at it from afar, I think they're going to be a whole lot of fun to watch. I think they're going to be challenging offensively. I think they're going to make you tackle in space. I think they're going to be aggressive. Now, do they have the roster to pull this off right now? Maybe, maybe not. But Will Stein's a Kentucky guy. So like Kirby Smart, he's going home in a sense, and he's certainly going to give it his best. So that's going to be a fun storyline to look at. And if we keep it rolling, what about Ryan Silverfield taking over at Arkansas? And he has a monster schedule that they have to deal with this year. And from a Georgia perspective, oh, by the way, Ryan had a lot to say about the University of Georgia when he was at Memphis in the summer months on a radio show. Well, now he could be in the room with Kirby Smart. He already has been. I wonder how much he's talking. I wonder what he's got to say about the University of Georgia now that he's in the conference. And oh, by the way, is going to be across the field from him here in just a couple months. Interesting. The drama is high, and that's what makes SEC Media Days different, and it's what makes it great. It's what makes it fun. Then we come to Florida. John Sumrall. Talk about somebody who has won everything so far. It's John Sumrall. The Gators love him. The university is putting money behind him. They are investing in the program, and they are saying, John, you're our guy. Let's crank this thing up. Let's make it happen. Well, all right. Well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, if you look at it on paper, you took the picture away, his resume looks a whole lot like Billy Napier's. We saw what happened to Billy. Is John different? Is it going to be better? We'll find out. He's the 31st head coach at the University of Florida. It's going to be interesting to see. I expect Florida is going to be better this year. I expect they're going to be better. Just how much better? We'll see. They have a great roster. Is Sumrall the guy to elevate them? So there's going to be plenty for Georgia fans and everybody else across the SEC to look at Florida and say, man, I like this. Let's talk about this, because the storylines write themselves. This is like a fire hose of information and content over the next 7 days. Just get ready. Just get ready. Pay attention to who you like. Some of us will help you sort through the noise better than others. I'll just leave it at that. But there's even more that Kirby and the guys are going to be walking into. Not just Lane Kiffin, not just all the new head coaches. What about the fact that the SEC is going to 9 games this year? Kirby's probably going to be asked about Lane Kiffin. He's probably going to be asked about all these new head coaches and what they're doing. Because as you go through and you talk to the various representatives from across the conference, they want to know what the man with the biggest voice thinks about what's going on at their local school. And then on top of that, he and everybody else is going to have to answer questions about the 9-game schedule. Last year, it was, man, we're going to 12, or 2 years ago, we're going to 12 in the college football playoff. How are we going to deal with that? How does it change your roster? How does it change how you practice? Those were the questions. This year, it's going to be, what about that 9-game schedule? Kirby already started. When he was sitting on the podium after the SEC championship game, he said, this was our 9th game, and both of these teams were beat to hell. And then it says a lot about the teams that they could even show up and then perform the way they did, and that's why I'm proud of my team for getting this championship. Now, everybody has a 9th game. So when we get down to November and December, who's going to be standing? That's going to be the question. Who is put together with bubble gum and duct tape and can still limp out onto the field and handle business should you make it to Atlanta? I understand that the other conferences across the country have no frame of reference about what this means. They don't have to do what you have to do in the SEC. And they will never hear you if you try to explain it to them, because they can't. It's like that meme, the European mind cannot comprehend. Well, the Big Ten mind, the Pac, whatever mind now, Pac-2, whatever they are, the Big 12, they cannot comprehend life in the SEC. All I have to do is point at the scoreboard and say, look at the players that are going to the NFL from this league. You have to line up against those dudes every week. You come give it a shot. See how you shake out with it. You don't have 1 or 2 games and then cakewalk the other 8, the other 7. Not in this league. They won't hear it. They can't understand it. Their brains can't fathom what it takes to navigate a 12-game season in the SEC. Which, again, is more than enough reason for me to jump back on the soapbox and be like, don't tell me that an SEC championship doesn't matter. Competition matters. That's why we play the games. So give teams credit when they accomplish those feats. And whoever does it this year, Georgia or anybody else, give them credit. They will have earned it. Kirby Smart is going to roll into Tampa with a message that he wants delivered. He wants to set the narrative, frame the season for his Georgia Bulldogs. He wants to make sure that nobody else is telling the story of his team before he has a chance to tell it. And that's exactly the way we should want it to be as Georgia Bulldogs fans. And I hope that when you watch all of this, you keep in mind some of the stuff I've talked about here tonight. And if you forget it, come on back, watch it again. Send it to a friend. Tell them, say, hey, this is what we should look for when we're watching SEC Media Days. You'll see it. Now that you know to look for it, it's hard to miss. So enjoy watching it and apply the same sort of frame to every coach that you watch and ask yourself, did they do that? Did they handle this opportunity the way Kirby Smart and Georgia did? Did my coach, if I'm a Kentucky fan, did my coach represent my school, set the narrative, and set the tone for how we are perceived inside the conference and nationally from the podium? Because Kirby Smart's going to. You want to watch a masterclass in how it happens? Watch Kirby Smart next week. And then ask yourself, if you're a Florida Gator, Did John Sumrall measure up? When he's weighed and measured, is it good enough? This is not some smaller conference. This is not the Sun Belt League. This is the big boy. This is marquee. This is the show. How will those other guys step up and represent their schools? Because I'm confident in how Kirby Smart's going to represent the University of Georgia. Kirby's going to go to Tampa, and he's going to deliver his message. And I can't wait to hear it personally. Is it going to be about player motivation? Is it going to be broader about how Georgia fits into the new world of college football? Or is it just going to be Kirby chopping wood and swinging the axe and driving home the points that make Georgia, Georgia? It's about culture. Yes, they're talented athletes, but the way we do things in Athens, it's different. I would tend to believe that's what it's going to be. And I really just can't wait to hear the message that Gunner and Drew and Raylen and Kirby Smart deliver from the podium in Tampa, because I think, much like it has in each of the last few seasons, when we look back at it at the end of the year, we're going to be able to point to what they say here in July and draw a straight line. Whether that's good enough to win a conference title, a national title, a playoff game, I don't know. But I'm just willing to bet that that's going to be a clear line when we look back, because Kirby Smart does nothing by accident. Whatever you see in Tampa is exactly what Kirby wants you to see. And he's going to tell you the truth. We'll just see how much of that he chooses to share with us and how it's delivered. Go Dogs!
Told him, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told him.